Waleed Aly used to be spokesman for the Islamic Council of Victoria. Now he is an ABC radio host and a lecturer at Monash University's Global Terrorism Research Centre. But is still, in my opinion, an apologist for Islamism. This week he went so far that even Labor's Foreign Affairs spokesman, Tanya Plibersek, had to pull him up when he claimed there was now no need to fight the Islamic State.
But there is no genocide happening right now. We don't need to prevent genocide by supporting the Iraqi military to re-establish control of Iraq, do we? But the genocidal threat seems to have abated. If that was our aim, shouldn't we have drawn a line under that?
So we're now only talking about mass atrocity crimes and we shouldn't worry. Is that the proposition you're making?
And Ali, as we showed earlier, said he couldn't understand why the Islamic State was a threat, since it was taking in our jihadists, not sending them back here. The very next day, police raided Islamic State supporters here to stop an alleged terrorist plot. Joining me is Nick Cater, author, columnist in The Australian and head of the Menzies Research Centre. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Andrew.
Now, why is a man with Waleed Aly's views on the ABC?
Well, look, I presume he's there to present the sort of mainstream view from the universities. If he's doing anything useful, I think that's his function, because he is the academic engagement coordinator for the Global Terrorism Research Centre at Monash University. So presumably he's taking, you know, esoteric arguments that they make and putting them into English. So what you're hearing, I think, from Waleed is pretty much the mainstream view within universities about terrorism, which is that it's an abstraction. You know, it's something we have to deconstruct to find out what the real meaning is, and to search beneath it to find the causes of the alienation. It's that sort of really convoluted thing. So look, it sounds like cloud cuckoo land commentary to you and I, but this is the way they're thinking in universities.
Well, you mentioned the word alienation, right? I'm just wondering whether journalists have been really honest about what's driving this jihadist threat. Alienation seems to be the consensus that it's all about how we've somehow marginalised Muslim Australians. Is that correct?
Well, you know, I mean, to an extent, yeah. Look, of course these are alienated youth. I mean, that goes without saying. You know, they're not engaged with the mainstream. I mean, if there has to be something quite peculiar about you to adopt this kind of behaviour. But is it us that's alienating them? I mean, that's the point. And Tony Walker on Friday in the Fin, I think, put it quite well. He said, look, we need to find a way to lessen the alienation. We have to find a way to lessen the alienation felt by radicalised Islamic youth. And look, I'm not sure if that's true, because that suggests that it's us that alienated them. But from what I see, we've got a very engaged sort of multicultural program. So what are we supposed to do? You know, do we want another kind of Palestinian pathway program, or do we want to chuck another $1 million at the alienated youth engagement program? Look, none of that works. I think the sort of tough policing that we saw, the sort of indication that the government is really going to crack down on this thing, I think that that's probably the best solution.
Yeah, but the thing too about this is it denies that there's something specific about the Muslim community as opposed to other communities we have in this country. Like, we have got as many Buddhists in Australia as Muslims, but yet we don't hear these cries to understand the alienation of Buddhists. We don't have terrorist, you know, anti-terrorism raids on Buddhist households. So I just wonder whether we are actually having a frank enough discussion about something in Islam that is peculiarly different.
Well, look, I think that what's happened with the Islamic communities is very often they've become separated. They've not integrated in the way that other ethnic groups or immigrant groups have. And so you've got this particular thing going on, and there is a peculiar thing about the cyber caliphate that they're all engaged on the internet. So clearly, yeah, I mean, I think it would be stupid to deny that it's Islamic youth or youth from Islamic backgrounds. But let's not forget that, you know, in a survey they did in Germany, 30% of the people that were radicalised and went to fight in Syria were actually converts. You know, many of them German youths who'd been there for a long time. So look, I mean, I think you have to look beyond in a way that to say, well, what is causing these kids to get so distant and so cut off from the rest of the community that they can behave in this way? And we have to then, I think, look to things like the way we teach citizenship and those sort of things to try and bring people into the crowd, to Team Australia, if you like.
Well, I also worry about journalists on the left feeding this sense of victimhood that they're just, all this is sort of like the terrorism raids are somehow just some sort of plot. Have a listen for an example. Yeah. This is just one of many. For example, the ABC's Raphael Epstein on the day of the raids asking Attorney General George Brandis this astonishing question.
Do you accept in any way the criticism that you'd rather be talking about this than a difficult budget?
Well, I wouldn't rather be talking about this. I would rather that this not be happening.
And Nick, was that a legitimate question?
Yeah. Look, they so want this not to be happening, don't they? You know, this reminds me of that movie Wag the Dog, you know, where an American president's involved in a sex scandal, so his aides bring in a Hollywood producer to stage a war against Albania, you know, in order to detract from it. And I don't know what Raphael is thinking here. Maybe he's thinking that, you know, the Australian government's called him Baz Luhrmann or something, and he's going to, you know, stage, Strictly Beheading instead of Strictly Ballroom. I don't know. Look, it's plainly ridiculous. You know, you're right that there is a real tendency within many sections of the media to try and deny that this is happening at all. It's all too unpleasant, and of course, you know what it says about the effectiveness of the multicultural policy that we've had is challenging. We've all got to face up to that. But you know, to ignore it, to pretend it, to wish it away, and to somehow, you know, give some credence to the idea that we've done something to alienate these people. Well, that's just ridiculous. You know, we have to look at this from a much more common-sense point of view, I think.
Nick, I've, and I think you too, we've marvelled at examples of groupthink on the ABC. You know, those debates where they all agree with each other and it's like there's no one around that could possibly disagree. Here's one of the most strange examples. A Q&A this week had 5 scientists and the host all talking about research funding and claiming that the Abbott government had destroyed it, that you know, it was all bad news. Have a listen.
It is fiscally irresponsible for this country not to be investing more strongly in research.
But I was flabbergasted when they actually came in and cut science.
They don't get how blue sky research translates eventually into economic benefits.
Now, how could 5 scientists, 2 of them in the medical area, and the host, all ignore the fact that the Abbott government has at least proposed, even if it hasn't got it up yet, a $20 billion medical science research fund, which is one of the biggest in the world?
Yeah, look, I mean, scientists you think are always people who pursue the truth, we hope, but they, of course, are also pursuing grants, and if the grants aren't in their area, then they'll squeal. But I'm surprised. I mean, this surely is one of the most, or if not the most important area where we can put research money into looking for a cure for cancer or a cure for schizophrenia. And these are areas where we are doing a lot of really good work, and we should be putting money. So I can think of, you know, I just maybe it escaped them, but they just forgot or something, Andrew. I don't know, but you know, why not champion this? The only thing you can think of is that there, you know, that really there's another agenda at play. That really they just want to drive down the stakes of the Abbott government, you know, without really looking seriously at what these proposals are going to do.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those interesting examples of groupthink where they all assume a certain thing. They haven't dragged in anyone to challenge it, and therefore they all leap to the wrong conclusion.
You have it all the time, don't you? And it is groupthink, I think. It's people who come on to spout the conventional wisdom, if you like.
That's
Whereas
right.
Science, of course, is one of those areas where you actually want people to come on and challenge the conventional wisdom.
Nick,
and I'd like to see more of that.
Now we could have an argument about their coverage of global warming. Nick Cater, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Andrew.
Coming up, your say.